Dustin, we have so much to talk about today.
Is today a
With
special day or something?
the
Have we been
Rivian
talking about this for every week?
I know it's been talked about for months now, actually, because RJ mentioned it a few months ago, and it finally happened. Today was the day, Rivian Autonomy Day, and there was some interesting surprises, and I think they did enough to where uh, every side of this whole thing, the people who absolutely love Rivian and everything that Rivian does, and they're super excited about autonomy and its autonomous capabilities. They gave them enough for them to be super excited, and then they also gave the naysayers a little bit of something to also cling on to and be like, hey,
Oh, good. Everyone's happy.
yeah. So I think
Kumbaya, right?
everybody has something to be excited about, whether you're on the naysayer side or the the fan side. Um, I just realized I should turn off my air conditioning unit. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I guess we should just clarify that Hamid was at the Rivian Autonomy Day event. So he wasn't only there in person, but he did get some time and talk to RJ. So I want to hear all about that. You have to unmute Hamid.
Yeah, the technical challenges of
Yeah, this is what
being a
happens
tech.
when it's a bonus pod.
That's right. Um, so the presentation itself actually left me with some questions, and we'll go through the presentation in just a minute. But I wanted to get those answered, and I was getting actually mixed responses. And as I was walking out at the end, I did run into RJ himself, and I clarified some things. So some cool stuff to talk about that
I'm excited to
maybe
hear it.
even if you watched the presentation, you might not you might have the same questions that I did. So um, yeah, we'll see. All right, shall we jump in?
Yeah, break it down. How did I guess how did like the initial part of the event work? How did it happen? Smooth.
So obviously they had over maybe 500-600 people at their facility that they brought in to do the presentation, and then they were giving demo rides to a small fraction of those people. Um, and I was not part of the demo ride group, at least
Okay.
initially, and then later RJ made that happen for me, so I'm
So that
super
was one of your
appreciative of
questions
that.
to RJ. Can I have a demo ride?
It was, it was, and
Good.
he did make it happen, and we'll talk about that as well. So let's
Did
go
you get a good
through.
seat too?
Yeah, I was the only sort of I was in the passenger seat,
No,
the
I mean at
only
the
non.
event. At the event.
Oh yes, I did. Every seat was decent seat, but I was in the
Mhm.
second row, pretty
Nice.
much center.
I actually think I
Um,
saw the back of your head during the live stream.
yeah, you saw
I'm
my
not kidding.
curls, huh?
Yeah, your curls are very prominent.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about it because there was some surprises that I was not expecting. The biggest surprise was that Rivian has been developing their own AI chip quietly. So far, in their second generation R1 vehicles, they have this autonomy computer that has two NVIDIA AI chips processors on there that is more capable than, in relatively speaking, relative to the Tesla computing powers, more capable than hardware 3 of Tesla vehicles. I'm not sure how it currently compares to hardware 4, but that is using the NVIDIA chips. Their next generation autonomy computer is going to be using Rivian's own home design chips, which they've been keeping silent um, and working on them under the radar. This is something that was unexpected, even from like an enthusiast like me who wants Rivian to do all kinds of stuff. I just assumed they would continue to partner with NVIDIA and use NVIDIA chips. But the fact that they can do a reduced amount of instructions, reduce power, and focus it on autonomy actually gives a huge advantage. And this is something that Elon has been saying as well, which is why they developed their own chips, starting with hardware 3 on the Tesla vehicles and hardware 3 on Teslas. I believe that was released in roughly 2019. So that was like 6 years ago. They switched to their own chips. Um, So this is the same strategy that Rivian has been is following, building their own chips. I think it's a fantastic little move, and they talked a lot about the details of their third generation autonomy computer and chip and all that stuff, which was very, very impressive. What did you think of all of that?
So I'm actually surprised that you were surprised that they announced their own chip just because Rivian loves to do everything in-house, it seems like. So it
Yeah.
seemed to me it was always a question of when, not if. And I think it's nice that they're doing it sooner rather than later. Um,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, I
you
guess
go.
agreed, but like because this is a pretty, autonomous driving is a pretty important market even for NVIDIA. I just figured that NVIDIA is going to focus more on this area, and that all the non-Tesla automotive companies who didn't have that in-house ability were going to just do it using NVIDIA chips. Now, this also goes to show how much Rivian is able to actually do in-house, because designing and building a chip, an AI chip especially, is not easy to do. And they've already done it, which means they have that talent. This goes to show what level of talent Rivian has
Absolutely.
in-house. And that in itself is an impressive major surprise, right? Like, I think a lot of people discount Rivian's ability to attract talent, and I think that there's a lot that this shows, that not only can they attract talent, but they've had this talent for years for them to be able to actually have this custom chip out already, and demonstratable, um, and be able to confidently say that they're going to put it into their vehicles next year. So um, that speaks volumes. But
And this chip is a part of their what are they calling it? Gen 3
hard, yeah,
hardware.
that's right. Gen 3 hardware for autonomy. Yeah.
And
Which,
is
go
that
ahead.
coming to all of their vehicles or just R2 or what's
Yeah.
the deal with
So
that?
so this was the sort of like potential surprise and possible negative aspect, right? Because a lot of people, I think, are expecting the Gen 3 hardware to be in the R2 vehicles. And I confirmed they are not going to be in the initial release of the R2 vehicles. So R2 vehicles are going to be released with essentially the equivalent of Gen 2, which is what the R1 vehicles have, with slightly better cameras, because they apparently are upgrading the cameras for Gen 3. So they'll have the Gen 3 cameras, but the Gen 2 hardware compute. And they will not initially have LiDAR, which is another thing that their Gen 3 is going to add to the mix of sensors that is coming.
It
So
seemed like
this
it
was a
seemed like they
surprise that,
were sorry.
yeah. Go No, no, go ahead.
It seemed like they were implying that LiDAR was not going to be ready for the initial release of, R2 just because they brought out the prototype at the event, and you would think if it was ready for the initial release, they'd be way past bringing out a prototype.
Right, but like, if you watch that presentation, I think you could have been confused. I was confused as to whether or not LiDAR was going to be part of the initial release of R2, and I had to get that clarified. And it's not going to be at the initial release of R2.
Right.
In best case scenario, it comes late 2026, possibly 2027, and then it first comes to the R2 line, because that's their sort of like high volume line, and then the R1 line doesn't get it until later. So what later means, we don't know, but probably not until at least 2027 sometime for the R1 line. So those were the potential negative aspects of like this cool new technology that is coming, but it's coming a little bit later than obviously the fans want. Um, as
So
an investor, as a fan, like, I want that stuff here yesterday, but
right,
but it's going to take a little bit.
my initial reaction is, like, I'm happy they're not delaying R2 to get all of the stuff in because. It's the same thing when you release software, you could continuously delay releasing a feature because
Right.
you want it to be perfect. So I'm happy that they're releasing R2 early. My question to you is, should they have delayed this announcement until they were ready to ship, later next year so it doesn't hurt
Well,
R2 sales?
yeah, that's a great question, and I don't think it's going to hurt R2 sales, because like
Okay.
the buying world like there's a significant portion of the population that has never experienced any kind of self-driving capabilities at all. And that portion is not like, is not waiting at the edge of their seats for this autonomous capabilities to come out in order for them to like pull the trigger. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that they actually did announce a lot of cool stuff that is going to be coming to the Gen 2 hardware, which both the R1 and R2 are going to have. So um, one of the important announcements was actually this hands-off driving that is coming to all of their vehicles, like literally in the next week or two. Like they said this month, which we're running out of time in December. So literally
Yeah.
in the next couple of weeks, they're going to release an update which allows for hands-free driving on basically all roads. Previously, they've had it so far on roughly 135,000 miles of roads in the US, and that's going to get expanded to something like 35 million miles. So essentially all roads. They had to have them pre-mapped before. They no longer need that pre-mapping, so technically it could work on any road. But they say that as long as the road has clear lane markings, you'll be able to use the hands off, which is essentially like lane keep and adaptive cruise, right? So and it'll be able to like change lanes for you and everything. And that system, by the way, they're pricing it at $2,500 one time or $50 per month, and it'll continue to get improvements like lane change, parking capabilities. All of these autonomous capabilities are going to come over time, and both the R1 Gen 2 and the R2 are going to have all of that capability. And eventually, it'll also have the capability without the hardware 3, without the third generation hardware, autonomy hardware. It will have point to point, meaning being able to follow directions. But that capability will probably not come until the end of 2026. So the timeline on this stuff is a little confusing, but fundamentally, you can get lane keep, adaptive cruise on all roads basically today, so in the next couple of weeks, and everybody will have it for free until March. And starting in March, they'll charge $50 a month or $2,500 one time. And then using that same hardware, eventually they'll have point to point, which is going to be able to follow the map. And they expect to have that towards the end of 2026. That's what I got a demo ride of today. And it was pretty impressive. I'll compare it to Tesla's in just a second. And then their third generation autonomous capabilities will take it all the way to level 4 autonomy, which is like, go pick up my kid from soccer, and the car will just drive there on its own. That kind of capability is probably 2027 and beyond. So that's the rough timeline that I got out of this presentation. Now, just to be clear, Rivian is not putting exact timelines on any of it except for the lane keep and adaptive cruise that's coming later this month. But everything else is sort of like up in the air. But that's kind of the impressions that I got based on the presentation as well as conversations with various people.
Right. So at a feature level, instead of looking at it from the hardware perspective, these first generation R2 vehicles, they won't have the ability to pick up my kid without me being in the vehicle, or
Well, there's a
do you
big
think that
question
will
as to
also
whether or
come
not
there?
LiDAR will be necessary for that. It's hard to say for sure. Actually, it might be able to.
Right.
And
Because
y-
my
yeah,
interpretation was, it seems like, at least for now, both of these generation of models will be able to do everything, but it seems like the LiDAR and their chip, it will just be able to drive autonomously better and safer, seems to be the takeaway, but I don't know. I'm
I
reading
think that
between
is
the
a
lines here.
yeah, I think that is a decent takeaway. But like, so if the second generation hardware can't do it as safe, the question is, will it ever be able to do it? Will they sell that service or sell that capability with Gen 2 hardware? And I think that that's questionable. I think that 2027 is going to really take them to the third generation of the autonomous capabilities, and that's when they're really going to focus on, let's have the cars basically be shareable between multiple riders, and like have it be able to go empty from one point to another,
Right.
without
And
that safety driver in the seat.
and to be clear, by safe, I don't mean that like these Gen 1 vehicles will be unsafe, but like when they were talking about in the presentation, like if there's fog, you need to rely on lidar more. So like in normal driving conditions, they could drive the exact same potentially. Again, I'm speculating here,
Yeah,
but in
yeah,
certain conditions, maybe these Gen 1 models won't be able to operate where these Gen 2 models can.
that's exactly right. So it's probably worth talking about this, because this is like the huge criticism that they get from the Tesla community, and because Elon sort of set his foot down, that like basically you have to do autonomy with camera only, with vision only, and he made this decision, I want to say roughly 5, 6 years ago, where he basically took out the radar out of all Teslas, and they used to have radar, and he took them out, and he put his foot down that like we're gonna only do this using vision only. That decision was made by Elon prior to the entire sort of large driving model AI way of driving, which is like using the neural nets. It was rule-based driving. So if you had multiple sensors, multiple types of sensors, you could have conflicting information coming in from radar or lidar versus vision. And therefore, Elon's decision seemed pretty good at the time, that like you cannot make a decision based on this conflicting information, and therefore we're going to do away with it. But since then, the approach has completely shifted to this neural net based way, where you just put into the sensors, the cameras, radar, lidar, whatever you have, you put them all into the neural net, and the AI learns from how a human driver drives, and in all of the conditions that it's sensing, and then based on how a human driver drives, it figures out what to do. And in that kind of an environment, it's quite possible that additional sensors, as long as you have the compute capability to be able to, take it in, additional sensors should be a helpful thing, not a hurtful thing. So one of the uh, things that they showed in the presentation is 3 visuals of camera only detection, camera with radar detection, and camera with radar and lidar detection, and like they were showing like what the system essentially sees and how it's making decisions. And you could see in the camera only system with low light, a person walking across the street would be like detected on and off every so often. And with radar, it was pretty consistently detected, and with lidar, it was like it was detecting things much further away. It was much more consistent. They were like there all the time. So it does appear like, from a technical standpoint, I think Rivian's position that the addition of radar and lidar is going to be a helpful thing for autonomous driving is a better position to take than Tesla's camera only position. Now, Elon kind of has set his foot down because they also have millions of cars on the road that don't have these additional sensors, and they've already sold full self-driving. So they got to figure this thing out with cameras only. But it's quite possible that it's going to be much better and safer when you introduce radar and lidar as well. So I think that the long term, the Rivian model might actually end up being the better model.
It seems like
So
the path to least resistance. This was my favorite part of the presentation, specifically when they showed the camera input, the radar input, and the lidar input, and then
yes,
how the AI merges the three in together into one visual that it understands.
right.
And that, right, so they're showing exactly how it converts all these inputs so that it doesn't have those clashes that I know a lot of Tesla uh, investors are speculating Rivian will have.
And that's exactly right. The speculation on that has always been based on, well, if you get contradictory data, like what are you going to do? Well, it doesn't work like that anymore. This self-driving stuff is not if-then statements.
Mhm.
It used to be, a little bit of too much if
Yeah.
then statements. They were trying to do all the edge cases by saying, if you see a bicycle, move to the left, right? Like, but now it's just like it's detecting all kinds of stuff. It slows down at bumps, at speed bumps, because that's just how humans drive. And they don't have to program those things in. It's just sensing it based on the cameras. Um, so yeah, I think the approach is pretty sound, and I think long term it'll prove out to be pretty solid.
And they're going to get ahead if Tesla does decide to move to LiDAR at some point, all of a sudden it's gonna be flipped where Rivian has more training data on
That's right.
LiDAR, whereas, Tesla has more training data on, camera input. So,
That's right. That's right. Um, yeah. So potential negative is that they won't have a lot of lidar based vehicles until late 2026, early 2027. But yeah, um,
should we
that
talk
advantage will potentially come later. In the meantime, they'll have radar sensors, sensory
right.
input as part of it. So
Right, which, by the way, like, most cars have radar, like, that's how adaptive cruise control works for every car pretty much except for Tesla, where they strictly
right.
use the cameras, so, like, it's not a crazy concept to have. Should we move to the Rivian Assistant?
Oh yes. So. Uh, like one of the things that they're trying to do with just AI throughout the vehicle is so that they make the vehicle's capabilities accessible through the AI, and the AI assistants, Rivian Assistant that they're introducing. And I'm not sure exactly what the timeline for that was. Did they mention it in the presentation?
Uh, I I don't remember if they did or not.
Yeah, I don't think it's part of this initial update. So I don't know when that's coming, but that was super impressive because it can not only use the integration of data that you would you might give to your car, which might be your contact and calendar information. That's pretty simple stuff, but you can make modifications to that data. But then you can also it can take use that data as context into, like, can you drive me to my next appointment? And then it knows, go check the calendar, figure out where the next appointment is, put that into the navigation system, and then uh, basically start that process. Uh, Additional integration that they showed is that, can you like find places to eat around the destination and around my destination, and then and it gives a few choices, and then you can actually say, can you text can you text Dustin and say, like, which one of these places do you prefer? And then it actually figures out what to do. And I'm like, damn, my phone should be able to do that.
It's
Where is
already better than
Apple?
Siri.
That's right, it's already better than Siri, which is kind of crazy. Like, literally, Siri should be able to do all of that. And they've
Totally.
partnered with Google to do some of those things, and I'm kind of excited for that as well. I think that the Rivian Assistant, when integrated with your car's capabilities, is super cool. So you can even tell it to turn on your seat warmers or change the temperature or whatever. So
And to be
that's
clear,
really good.
they partnered with Google, not that they're using Gemini, but that they're using integrations to Google Calendar for the AI to access.
That Yeah, actually, I don't know the details of what that partnership is. Like,
I mean, it sounded like they were building the AI from the ground up. I would be shocked if they were using Gemini and rebranding it.
you're right, because it would need to have context for the vehicle itself, so they can't just be using off the shelf Gemini for sure.
Yeah,
So either
and I
they're
would think
building their own, or there's some tighter integration there.
yeah, I don't think Google would let them white label it, but who knows?
Yeah, you're probably right. They did talk about how it is super important for them to own the entire stack. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's like in their DNA.
yeah.
But makes sense that
Um,
they're doing a Google Calendar integration because they're not going to build a calendar system because no one would
oh yeah,
use it.
of course, yeah,
So they know their limits.
yeah. Okay, so uh, well, before we talk about the demo ride, did you have any other sort of comments or questions?
Uh, yes. So you're a Tesla owner. Currently, Teslas have Grok integrated into them, correct?
Yes, but
So
they don't have
how
any.
does it
The
compare?
Grok
Yeah.
that's integrated into Teslas is basically the same Grok that you get on your phone. It has no awareness of anything that the car can do. So, which is surprising. And by now, because they've been integrated for a few months, you would have thought that Tesla would already have these capabilities that Rivian was demonstrating today. So that's a surprise, and I suspect this might kick Elon into gear to like
Totally.
release it before Rivian does. But but right now you cannot tell Grok like uh, put in my navigation destination to whatever, which is surprising. Like that should be like very much doable within the system.
I'm sure there'll be an update in a week. That's my bet.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe a little bit longer than that, because one of the things that's kind of interesting is because like Elon is doing these things in like isolation. Like Grok is technically part of X,
Mhm.
which is separate from Tesla, right? Like, yes, it's an Elon thing, but like, the Grok team doesn't have access to the Tesla details, right? Like, so they're just, integrating an app inside the Tesla framework, which is relatively easy to do, but that app has no access to any of the vehicle's capabilities, right? So in order for them to be able to access the vehicle's capabilities, they need deeper integration between the Grok team and the Tesla team, and
Right.
it's questionable how those things work when everything is a separate company
Yeah.
with Elon.
I I
But
will say having these deeper integrations specifically to control the vehicle is great. Now, given I don't drive a vehicle with a full touchscreen, but in theory, I just I would imagine it's very difficult to like change settings as I'm driving if it's not autonomous. So to be able to do it with your voice, I would assume has to be pretty helpful.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And like some things are going to be buried into deeper menus, and you might be able to turn those features on and off. Like,
Right.
yeah. Um, Yeah, I think it's going to be a great selling feature, but it might be a while before people know that because nobody knows that they need this. You know what I mean? Like, so once they have it for a while, it'll take some potentially years before people are like, I have to have this integration into my car.
Right. Yeah. So how is the demo?
Okay, so the demo ride was roughly 20 minutes, and it was a closed loop, meaning like they had a pre-programmed path that it took, but it was going through regular streets with lights and stop signs, and there was some construction and cones and everything. And I took a video of the entire demo ride, which was roughly 20 minutes. So if I have a chance, I'll try to upload it. During that ride, we did have to go around a bus one time. So like we took it off of self-driving, if you will, to go around the bus. And she also took over and used, I forget what they call it, co-steering or something like that, which is you can keep it in self-driving and still like adjust the steering without like in a Tesla, when you adjust steering, it just takes it completely off of self-driving. But in the Rivian, you can like nudge it essentially, like steer away from a bicycle, which is what we did in on this demo ride. Um, so I would say that it was very smooth. Um, Generally, it did a great job. Like if this was available in Rivians today, I would definitely be buying a Rivian. And this would be good enough to where like it's going to do the vast majority of my driving. But it's not as good as Tesla's. There's no question about it yet. Um, and I would say my Tesla behaved in basically the same ways that this behaved roughly year and a half ago. So if I had to guess, I would say they're roughly a year to year and a half behind where Tesla was. Like that's where Tesla was about a year and a half ago. Now, in the past year and a half, Tesla has gotten a lot better. The self-driving in Tesla has gotten a lot better. Super smooth. Like the bus situation what is handled in the Tesla. It just goes around a bus that's stopped as long as there's no oncoming traffic. It just handles those kind of situations perfectly fine. Or the bicycle on the side of the street. It just like gives it more room without you having to sort of like co-steer away from it. So from a Tesla FSD driver, I use FSD literally every day for all my drives. This was impressive enough to where I would use it if like this was available today. I would buy a Rivian. But I can acknowledge that it wasn't as good as where Tesla is today.
Right. And I don't think that was anyone's expectation.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. In fact, Tesla people think that Rivian is never going to get this and should be like licensing it from Tesla. And this is something that boggles my mind. It's like, how do you think? And some people genuinely believe that Rivian is 10 years behind Tesla. It's like, even Tesla completely hit the reset button roughly 3 years ago on their AI and autonomy capabilities and their approach towards it. So if you started from scratch today, you would be at best 3 years behind Tesla, assuming you had the resources and talent to be able to sort of like pull things off. But also, there's this thing that happens when a particular field is getting pioneered. The pioneers are like, working for decades sometimes to get something to a certain place, like ChatGPT with OpenAI, as an example. But then the second to market or third to market can utilize all the stuff that's already there and knows the new approaches that work, and is only 6 months or a year or a year and a half behind. They're not like decades behind, right? Like it took us 70 years of computing to get where ChatGPT is today, and this is like the real dream of what computers were supposed to do, which was predicted from the 50s and has been worked on, artificial intelligence, since the 50s. But that doesn't mean the second player is 70 years or 80 years behind, right? It's just a silly position to take, that just because Tesla has been doing it for 10 years, you're 10 years behind. That it just doesn't work that way.
So you got some time with RJ. What did you guys talk about? What did you ask him?
Yeah, so my question to him immediately was that, hey, the naysayers say you're going to run out of money before you can get to profitability. What do you got to say about that? And his response was that it takes basically like, and I'll post the video. Actually, I took a video of it, although the audio and video might not be perfectly synced. I used my Meta camera, which was a little disappointing if the audio video is not in sync. But fundamentally, the gist of his response was that it takes time to get there, and it's not like we didn't know we were going to lose money for some period of time and are going to continue to lose money for some additional period of time. But it's all about building the technologies and capabilities necessary to get to volume, and we're doing it methodically and getting there, and we think we're going to get there. And he's like, I've been hearing that since day one, since day 1,000, since day 10,000, that we're going to run out of money, and we haven't run out of money yet. So I think the naysayers are the ones who are going to be wrong. But yeah, so that was the gist of my conversation about with RJ, which was about Rivian's profitability prospect. But yeah,
I think the scariest thing in my mind is if new technologies continue to pop up where Rivian has to continue to heavily invest. So like if there's another, like they weren't expecting when they started this company that they would need a AI division to do self-driving, because no one did it, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, we need to heavily invest in this. So if there's another breakthrough that happens, like, or enough breakthroughs happen, that could actually be more detrimental to them if they're not profitable.
These breakthroughs or these paths have been known for the car industry for, I would say, more than a couple of decades, right? Like the transition to EV, the transition to software-driven vehicles. So this is like two different transitions. And then autonomous capabilities, and then eventually robo-taxi level, all the things that comes with self-driving, full self-driving level 4 capabilities. These four things have transitions, or what I would call disruptive technologies, have been predicted for the car industry for the past 20 years, that they're coming. Now, not everybody's been working on them, clearly. Most of the traditional car makers have no idea how to work on some of these things, as has been shown over and over again with their EV vehicles, and then the cancellation of their EV vehicles. And then, like, they don't know if they should be serious about EVs or not serious about EVs. So forget about the whole software driven aspect of the cars. They don't know how to do that. They've been putting together cars from 50 different OEMs, where they're basically taking software and hardware and combining it from a bunch of different vendors. So there's no way for them to build a single software driven vehicle where it's just a single operating system that controls all aspects of your car, from air conditioning to the brakes to the adaptive cruise control. All of those things need to be single software. And then autonomous capabilities is another disruption. So when you combine these disruptions and think about who's ahead, the leader is clearly Tesla, but then the second place from a technology standpoint is Rivian, and Rivian has shown that it's willing to and is able to work with partners to license their technology to others. So I could see Volkswagen and Ford and GM and BMW and Mercedes, et cetera, and others potentially licensing Rivian's technology into their vehicles in the future, including their autonomous systems, by the way. So, if you're Ford, what are you going to do? Build your own chip, AI chip? Like you're not going to be able to even attract the talent to be able to do that, where Rivian already has that. So I think they're in a pretty good position.
Should we take some listener questions?
Let's do it.
Anything else you want to share? Cool.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey.
We have several people asking, just in general, what do you think about the market reaction? And did this really impress investors, or did it not impress investors? So we've had multiple questions about that. So just give a response overall.
Yeah. So it's important to show that, like, the market the stock is down 6% roughly. And what's funny is that it was down 6% prior to all the announcements. So, and it started to inch up as they were announcing things. And then when they finished the presentation, it literally dropped back down to roughly down 6%. And I think that the Wall Street has not ever historically been notorious for knowing how to react to these things in an appropriate way. So, the general theory from investors, or the market theory, I guess, is that the markets are efficient, and they have decided that this was unimpressive, and stock is down 6% or whatever. But over time, you might find that it reverses itself because people have had a chance to digest it. There's been more sort of people who do deep dives on these things, and they're like, wait, this seems legitimate. There seems to be technologies that other people don't have, or other companies don't have, that might be unique to Rivian, and maybe we should give them some sort of advantage there. And those things will play themselves out. The market's reaction is often unpredictable, and I think both Dustin and I have been saying that, and that there might be sell on the news no matter which direction it goes.
Yeah,
for weeks. Yeah. So this doesn't surprise me in any way.
And part of the reason why we thought there was a good chance it would be a sell the news event is this Rivian stock was only at $12, $13 in November last month.
Right.
So
right.
It is still significantly up from last month, but went down today. So, and
Yeah.
it's hard to say exactly why was it going up in the last month. Was it because of the anticipation for this event? And if so, then net, it was still a positive.
It's still a
move.
positive.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple questions specifically. Hamid, will you stay in Rivian or sell? Someone's asking if you'll buy more. What are you thinking?
So I think I had mentioned this before. I think Rivian is the largest single investment I have made so far into a company, and I do not expect to exit the position anytime soon. Um, so yeah, that sums it up. I don't expect to also buy more because it is still the largest single investment I've already made. So uh, I'm not looking to add additional shares, but I have plenty.
Okay, we have one last one I think we can do before we wrap it up. The person said, I saw that it was mentioned that it needs solid road lines for the autonomous driving. Will that be needed forever, or point to point roughly 2027 won't need the solid lines?
They didn't exactly clarify on whether or not it needs solid lines for later on, but chances are that assuming the neural net approach that Tesla and others have taken, um, you will not need solid lines most likely in that approach. Meaning, like, it can infer lines uh, based on what it has seen before, even if like the lines are not there because of construction or whatever. But the current capabilities of what they're releasing this month is going to require solid lines. But to be clear, this doesn't take you, like, it won't stop for red lights and things of that nature. So, and it won't take you from point to point. You still have to take turns, and meaning, like, if you're turning right on a different street, you're still going to have to take over, but it can keep you centered in the lane and keep the distance. And on the freeway, they expect to have ramp on to ramp off fairly soon as well. They didn't say exactly when, but so on the freeway, it'll actually change freeways for you and things of that nature. But that's probably coming in 2026 sometime.
Okay, I think we've got everything that we've got everybody's questions answered. So
Sweet. Thank you all
Awesome.
for listening to this special bonus episode of Buy Hold Rant. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. We do episodes every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. We talk about stocks. We talk about our portfolios. We talk a lot about Rivian. So it's a good time.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.